Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Andy's Witchcraft. I hope you're all having a wonderful start of the new school year, but that you've also have time to practice self-care and relax a bit. Today's episode, we are going to discuss the next Wheel of the Year holiday, which is happening on September 22nd this year, and that is Mabon. And so Mabon is also known as a harvest home, and it celebrates the autumnal equinox, which is one of the 2 days of the year where both night and day are equal in length. The exact date ranges from September 22nd to the 24th, depending on the year, and it's just this year that it happens to fall on the 22nd. The reason it's called the Harvest Home is because it celebrates the mid-harvest festival, which is also known as the second harvest. It's the second harvest after Lammas. This is the time of the year to give thanks, which is probably why Thanksgiving holiday usually follows a couple of weeks. Although I prefer Mabon because it does not have a history of colonization, indigenous warfare, and all that. So this is a much more peaceful pagan way to celebrate a Thanksgiving. It's this time of year when farmers know how well their summer crops did and how well fed their animals were. So this determines whether their family would have enough food for the winter season. And if they did have enough, it was the reason why they would give thanks to their crops, their animals, and the food. Many civilizations celebrate a harvest festival around this time of the year. In the 1700s, the Bavarians, which is part of present-day Germany, began a festival that started in the last week of September, and they called it Oktoberfest. This festival had lots of feasting, celebrating, and is still celebrated today. Since Mabon marks the end of the witch's year, it is a good time to let go of things that no longer serve you. So, now that we have a little bit of a brief intro on this Wheel of the Year holiday, let's discuss mythologies that surround Mabon. I have here brief mythologies from different cultures or like religions, spiritualities, whatever you call it. So I'm going to start with the Celtic traditions. So we're going to begin with the mythology of Mabon. Not just the Wheel of the Year holiday, but it's actually the name of a Celtic god. The Wheel of the Year holiday, Mabon, goes back to ancient Celtic times and maybe even further, but we can see that it started to pick up around Celtic times. And although Mabon was part of the Wheel of the Year and it didn't take root. It wasn't actually called Mabon until the 1970s. But before that, ancient Celts celebrated the autumn equinox. It may not have had a name. They may have just called it the equinox, but they celebrated it. And they rejoiced in the near end of the busy harvest season. This season was important for agricultural purposes and therefore important to society's survival. And so later on, they decided to name it Mabon. They and maybe even other cultures. I'm not sure which culture coined the term Mabon, but the name Mabon did come from the Welsh god of light, called the Mabinogion or Mabon, and he was the son of the Earth Mother goddess Modron. I'm going to call him Mabon just for simplicity's sake, but Mabon was born a divine child, and his birth is associated with a miracle, not too much different than the Immaculate Conception in stories of Jesus and even stories of the Buddha. As a baby, Mabon is kidnapped and taken to the other world, or the underworld, which caused light to go into hiding. Therefore, in Celtic mythology, Mabon is the period when the god of light was vanquished by the god of darkness, which resulted in the lengthening of the night. One day, a man named Kulwich sought to win the hand of his love Olwen, who was a giant's daughter. To win her over, he had to kill an enormous boar. Unfortunately, he had no hope of finding the boar without Mabon's help, because the boar could only be tracked by a special hunting dog called Drudwyn, which can only be controlled by Mabon. It was then that a long and involved search for Mabon began, and with the help of Kulwich's cousin, King Arthur, Mabon was found in an underwater prison, is freed, and is able to help him hunt the boar and eventually win his bride. Again, historians dispute whether Mabon actually was worshipped by Celtic countries, or whether it began with Celtic countries, or if it was a construction of modern pagan movements sometime between the 1950s and 1970s. Regardless, the name had Celtic roots. The second mythology in Celtic traditions is Cernunnos. Cernunnos? Cernunnos, yeah, it's Cernunnos. He was the horned god of the Celts. He's the god of fertility, animals, and the underworld. And in many myths, Cernunnos dies and decays in the fall. His body is soon swallowed by the earth. And in dying, he is returned to the earth. He impregnates a fertility deity, one assumed to be his wife. And then that offspring is made so that new life could be born in the spring. The death of Cernunnos is a sacrificial one, and he must die for a new life to even have a chance. So those are two of the most common Celtic mythologies surrounding the autumn season. And now we're going to move on to the Greek mythologies. These two are very much known, not only to those who work with the Greek pantheon, but to people who may have read Percy Jackson or any of those, any books that involve Greek mythologies. But the two deities are Demeter and Persephone. According to myth, it is because Demeter grieves the loss of her daughter Persephone that we have autumn and winter. Persephone was a beautiful and happy girl, and all who knew her loved her. One day, Demeter took Persephone with her on a trip to Earth, and while frolicking in the flowers, Persephone stopped to pick a particularly lovely narcissus, only to be captured by the cold ruler of the underworld, Hades. Demeter searches 9 days in vain for her lost daughter. When she began to fear that she would never see her beloved Persephone again, Demeter questioned Helios, the sun, whose gaze saw everything. Helios told Demeter that clouds had blocked his view that day and that he could not help her. Demeter withdrew her touch from the land. Without her tending to the agriculture, the plants withered and died. Demeter, in the guise of an old woman, came to the city of Attica in Eleusis and was welcomed by the king there. Demeter began to nurse the king's 2 young sons and decided to make one of them immortal. In a ritual, Demeter began to hold the child over a sacred flame each night. The queen discovered the disguised goddess in the act and unknowingly broke the spell with a cry of horror. With this, the goddess revealed her true identity to the queen and commanded that a temple be built in her honor in Eleusis. The temple was built as commanded, and this is where Demeter secluded herself from the world. The gods begged Demeter to reconsider because people were dying from lack of food, and the earth cried out from the cold and barrenness. Finally, Triptolemus, one of the sons of the king in Eleusis, went to Demeter and told her of a strange thing he had heard. While he was tending to a flock of sheep on the day of Persephone's disappearance, the ground nearby opened up and Hades himself had appeared. After Triptolemus heard a frightened girl scream, Hades disappeared again, and the ground was closed up once more. When Demeter heard this, she knew at once what had happened to her daughter and was enraged. She went to Zeus at once and demanded the return of her daughter. After some bits of trickery on Hades' part, Persephone was allowed to return to her mother and all was well in the world again. That is, until Demeter learned that Persephone had tasted the fruit of the dead and was therefore required to return once more to the underworld. Rather than have the mortals suffer, Zeus came up with a compromise to the situation. For every seed that Persephone had tasted, she would spend 1 month in the underworld with Hades, her husband. Thus, each autumn, when Persephone returned to the underworld, Demeter mourned her absence. But as a reward for his assistance, Demeter taught Triptolemus the secrets of grain, the art and knowledge of agriculture, which allowed man to harvest the grains and survive the time of mourning. So that was a very long one. It's a little more knowing, and a lot of people do know about this mythology, but that is another ancient hypothesis, I guess, as to why we have the autumn season. Next, we're going to talk about Middle Eastern mythology. I'm going to start with the Sumerian gods, Inanna and Dumuzi. Inanna went to visit the underworld when the husband of her sister, Ereshkigal, died. When refused entry, because her and her sister do not always see eye to eye, Inanna threatened to storm the gates. Ereshkigal then allowed Inanna entry, but on one condition: she must shed one of her garments at each of the 7 gates. Inanna agreed, and when finally face to face with Ereshkigal, was cursed with 60 diseases, and these killed her. When she changed into a piece of rotting meat in the netherworld, that was it. She was gone. When Inanna was in the underworld, the world above perished, and the gods became alarmed. The god Ea sent a being to rescue Inanna. This being was named Enki. Inanna was returned on the condition that she furnish a substitute to take her place. On her return, finding her young husband Dumuzi feasting instead of mourning for her, Inanna was seized with jealousy and designated him that substitute. Dumuzi tried to flee the posse of deputies who had accompanied Inanna, and with the help of the sun god Utu, who changed Dumuzi's hands and feet into snakes so that he could escape, he fled. Later, he was recaptured, escaped again, and so on, until a fly came to Inanna and told her where Dumuzi was. Then Dumuzi was finally taken to the netherworld. Inanna told Dumuzi's little sister, Geshtinanna, where he was, and she went in search of him. The myth ends with Inanna rewarding the fly for his assistance and decreeing that Dumuzi and his little sister alternate as her substitute. Each of them would spend half a year in the netherworld and the other half above with the living. It is believed that Dumuzi is in the netherworld during summer and is reunited with Inanna at the autumnal equinox. After reuniting with his wife, both Dumuzi and Inanna stretched their hands across the land, and all life, fertility, and abundance returned to the earth. So that's the Sumerian god mythology of autumn. There's the Mesopotamian counterparts of Inanna and Dumuzi, who are Ishtar and Tammuz, respectively. Their myth is very similar to the descent of Inanna, so I'm not going to repeat it. It's just too long. But the only difference is Ishtar went to the underworld, the netherworld, because she wanted to be reunited with her lover, Tammuz. And other than that, everything is very similar with the mythology. Finally, I'm going to discuss Norse mythology behind the autumn season, why we have autumn. The first goddess is Freya, and Freya possesses the Brisingamen, which is a necklace that brings protection and fertility to the world. And then there's Freyr, who's the god of plenty and known as the god of harvest. He reigned over the sun and rain, and when he rode his golden boar across the skies, his light penetrated even the darkest of shadows, bringing prosperity and abundance to the land which he ruled. I tried very hard to look online for like the full mythology, similar to what I did for the previous mythologies, but to my dismay, I could not really find anything. But if you want more information, if you look up Freya and Freyr, perhaps you can find more information on that. But they are the reason why we have harvests and why we have the changing seasons. And yeah. And then I'm finally going to finish off this section with not really a mythology, but the Christian counterpart of Mabon, because I'm a Christo pagan Buddhist, as you all know by now. But the Christian counterpart of this holiday is Michaelmas. This is the feast of Saint Michael the Archangel. It is celebrated in Western churches on September 29th, and it celebrates how Saint Michael defeated Satan and therefore became the protector against the dark of night. During the Middle Ages, Michaelmas was a great religious feast, and in England, it was the custom to eat goose on Michaelmas, which was supposed to protect against the financial need for the next year to survive like the cold season. But that's about it for that part. Now, I always have Bible verses in my episodes, or like the majority of them, depending on like the topic. But this episode will be no different. There's going to be fewer because a lot of verses about the autumn equinox involve the harvest season, and I did cover a lot of those verses in my Lammas episode. So if you want more verses on the harvest, you can revisit that episode and skip to that part, and then you'll find them. But the first Bible verse associated with autumn is James chapter 5, verses 7 through 8. Be patient then, brothers and sisters, until the Lord's coming. See how the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, patiently waiting for the autumn and spring rains. You too, be patient and stand firm, because the Lord's coming is near. The next verse is Isaiah chapter 40, verses 6 through 8. A voice says, "Cry out." And I said, "What shall I cry?" All people are like grass, and all their faithfulness is like the flowers of the field. The grass withers and the flowers fall, because the breath of the Lord blows on them. Surely the people are grass. The grass withers and the flowers fall, but the word of our God endures forever. The third verse is Joel chapter 2, verses 23. Be glad, people of Zion. Rejoice in the Lord your God. For he has given you the autumn rains, because he is faithful. He sends you abundant showers, both autumn and spring rains, as before. The fourth verse is Deuteronomy chapter 11, verses 13 through 15. So if you faithfully obey the commands I am giving you today, to love the Lord your God and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, then I will send rain on your land in its season, both autumn and spring rains, so that you may gather in your grain, new wine, and olive oil. I will provide grass in the fields for your cattle, and you will eat and be satisfied. And finally, Proverbs chapter 3, verses 9 through 10. Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops. Then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine. So, as stated before, all the verses involving autumn do involve abundance and harvest of some sort, but they also involve God's blessings in nature, specifically rain. We all know that water has very, very spiritual properties, especially regarding emotional well-being and cleansing. And so it's like God is blessing us with rains that will cleanse us and help us feel comfortable and anew during the season of death and rebirth. It's important to be cleansed so that new life can be brought out. Now I'm going to discuss some Mabon associations. These are items you can include on a Mabon altar if you choose to make one. They're associations you can use in kitchen magic, decorations, all of that jazz. The first one is the element. So Mabon is strongly associated with the element of water because, as I stated, it's related to deep, intuitive, emotional healing, cleansing, and renewal. The colors of Mabon are dark green, red, orange, yellow, brown, and gold, which are fall colors. Foods are apples, which is a symbol of healing, rejuvenation, regeneration, and completeness, in addition to life and immortality. Ale, beans, grapes, bread, cider, corn, gourds, dried seed, potatoes, onions, carrots, squash, wine, and pomegranates. And so all of those are symbols because I know pomegranates, I think that has to do with Persephone's myth, if I'm not mistaken, that she had pomegranate seeds, but don't quote me on that. But the point is, a lot of these are fruits and vegetables and grains that grow during the autumn season, and their symbolism does involve healing and life and immortality and all that jazz. And so that's why these are the foods closely associated with Mabon. Crystals closely associated with the season are amber, amethyst, cat's eye, citrine, garnet, peridot, ruby, tiger's eye, and yellow topaz. A lot of these, because the color is a fall color, and I'm sure the properties as well of healing are closely related with these ones, healing and abundance as well. Symbols that, like I said, you can include on your altar are the cornucopia, which is a sign of prosperity that the harvest brings, hand trowels, baskets, scythes, and pine cones, which are all related to the autumn harvest. Animals associated with the season are blackbird, coyote, crow, duck, goat, goose, owl, raven, stag, squirrel, turkey, and wolf. Plants and herbs associated with this are ivy vines. Just a note, be careful that it's not poison ivy. I feel like that's common sense, but yeah. Rose, thistle, honeysuckle, ferns, poppies, clove, myrrh, marigold, oak moss, rosemary, sage, saffron, sandalwood, thyme, and acorns. Deities and spiritual beings really good to work during the season are Mabon, Demeter, Persephone, Dionysus, Osiris, Isis, Ranuta, Inanna, Ishtar, Dumuzi, Tammuz, Ashtoreth, Freya, Freyr, Cernunnos, the Green Man, Ceridwen, Aaron, Asherah, and Lucifer. Basically, any deities of the underworld, the harvest, or fertility, these are deities closely associated with the season and who you can feel a close connection to during this time. And finally, spell work that's good during the season are spells to restore balance and harmony, spells to decrease or end old habits, shadow work spells, abundance spells, and fertility spells. Now, like I said, Crystal Pagan Buddhist here, so let's talk about some Buddhist traditions during Mabon. On this day, Buddhists have the O'Higan observance, which is celebrated twice a year at the spring and fall equinox. O'Higan means the other shore of enlightenment, or the Pure Land, which stands in opposition to this shore of samsara, or the world of delusion. Standing on that other shore is Amida Buddha, who is beckoning us to cross over. This is a time that reminds Buddhist practitioners that they can reach nirvana in this current life. This day is a gathering to praise the Buddha, and it is said that this time of year is the time to contemplate the 6 paramitas perfected by Amida Buddha. Paramitas are guidelines to help us overcome egocentric thinking. They are dana, selfless sharing; sila, correct behavior; ksanti, patience; vidya, effort; dhyani, meditation; prajna, wisdom. Buddhists believe that the autumnal equinox is the time of year where the barrier between the physical world and the spirit world is at its thinnest. So many families use this occasion to pray for their departed loved ones by visiting their graves, cleaning up grave sites, offering flowers, burning incense, and reciting sutras. So overall, this time is a great time for self-reflection. Are you following the paramitas? And also remembering your loved ones that are in the other life. Especially because Ghost Festival season just passed, the Hungry Ghost Month, as this year it ends on the 14th, and so it just came to a conclusion. And so it's a time to reflect on what you did during that month, reflect on whether you were successful in showing filial piety to your passed on loved ones and ancestors, and continuing to remember them and continuing to honor them and their memory. Finally, I'm going to end off this episode with ways that you can celebrate Mabon. The first one is to practice Buddhist traditions that I listed above with honoring your loved ones. Bonus points for giving to charity if you can afford it, because this does reduce egocentric thinking as the paramitas put forward. The second way is to make a Mabon altar. So with the items listed above and the colors listed above, you can make an altar dedicated to the season. If you don't have a specific altar space for it, you can decorate your home or your bedroom for autumn. You can bring fresh and dried flowers, acorns, pine cones, candles that were the colors or scents listed above. I have a candle that smells like pine cones, and so I'm going to light that candle during the month or during the day. Also, it's in the shape of a pine cone too, which is like awesome. And I also have colors that are red and the dark green and orange that I can light as well during the day. You can do shadow work journaling and meditation. There are tons of YouTube prompts, and if you Google shadow work prompts, you can find some shadow work stuff to do and try. You can look up videos. You can meditate if you like that. And meditating is not necessarily sitting there like eyes closed and trying to ground, because not everyone can do it. I have generalized anxiety disorder. I cannot do that. But meditating could just be walking in nature, looking around you. What do you see? I see the trees that are growing from the earth. I hear birds whistling. Really grounding yourself and spending time connecting to the earth during the season is a form of meditation that you can do. You could also do kitchen witchery, a stew or soup with seasonal vegetables that were listed above, the foods listed above, apple pie, pumpkin pie, whatever you could think of. You can cook that yourself and make sure that all of your intention is being put in it. Maybe you can carve a sigil in it, or a cross if you're a Christo pagan or Christian witch, or the Om symbol. If you are Buddhist, you can carve that in so that this feast will bring you mindfulness. That works too. Bonfires are a great way too to burn, like if you have old letters from ex-friends and exes and people that you want to leave behind, you could burn those in the bonfire. You could burn bay leaves in the bonfire. There are just so many ways you could do that. You could cook s'mores, and then that's a form of kitchen witchery too. There's just an abundance of opportunities with that you could do. Then you could also do apple picking. You're connecting to nature. you're putting your intentions in the fruits that you're picking, and you're spending time with friends and family if you're not going by yourself. It's just a really great way to connect with the world around you. The next way you could celebrate is decluttering. This is a spiritual way to let go of what no longer serves you. If you are a hoarder like I am, this is a good time to try to push yourself out of your comfort zone, to get rid of what you no longer need, clear out your kitchen cupboards, use up anything that is about to expire, get rid of old clothes that no longer bring you joy, send it to the charity shop. That's awesome. And all those things can help you. I find that when I declutter my bedroom, I can breathe. Same for getting a haircut. It's like hair. I talk about this with my friend all the time. Hair holds in your trauma. Okay, you cannot tell me otherwise. So by getting a haircut, you are releasing all that trauma. You are able to breathe. You have a weight off your shoulders. Like, you cannot tell me. I'm telling you, get a haircut. If you're not very attached to your hair, if you're not trying to grow it out, get a haircut. That is decluttering. That is spiritual cleansing. I promise you. Next, you can do a gratitude journal. So what are you thankful for? I have a journal that I'm dedicating to working with Ashra, and Ashra is helping me with self-love. So I'm going to also use that journal for a gratitude journal and ask Ashra to help me acknowledge and be thankful for the blessings that I have in life. And I highly recommend that you do this with me too. In fact, if you are listening this far, please comment below one thing you are grateful for. If you're listening to this on YouTube, I don't think you can do that on Spotify. But I know I have a Q&A question set up, so I'm going to set it up. What is one thing you are grateful for? Answer that Q&A question and feel yourself acknowledge the blessings that you have. There, that is my challenge for you. And then finally, practice divination. I plan on doing a shadow work tarot pull with Lucifer, meditating with Buddha, thanking Jesus for all the abundance that he helps me find myself, thanking Yahweh for the abundance that life has given me, thanking Asherah for the abundance of the earth. There is just so much to be meditating on and thankful for, and I have so many spirit guides to thank for that. And so this is a time where I'm going to not only work with one spirit guide, but collectively all of them. I'm going to try to see if they're willing to work together to help me do some shadow work and gratitude thinking. So that is all that I have for this episode. If you liked it, if you're listening on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe for more. If you're listening on Spotify, you can follow it. Come on, you know you want to. Just kidding. Don't feel pressured to. But yeah, that is everything. If you liked it, follow me on social media. My Instagram is at Andy's Witchcraft, and my TikTok and Tumblr are at sacredmoondivination. I'm gonna have the Linktree link below. You could give me some video suggestions, always encouraging that. Using the Google form that says video ideas. Click on that, fill out a video suggestion, and I will do my best to do a video on that. You could also join my Discord server, the Crystal Caverns. We are always welcoming new members. We're hosting monthly events. We join in on voice channel just to chat and listen to music and chill. And we have so much resources on witchcraft that we hope to help you on your journey. So that is about it. Thank you for listening. Blessed be everyone. Have a wonderful day, week, month, and year.